Good evening, sir. I am Yashkar. On behalf of SIC team, I welcome you and would thank you for sparing your time for this workshop about social entrepreneurship. Wasting no time, I will start introducing you to our audience. So, hello everyone present here. Mr. Santosh is currently the acting VP at NASCOM Foundation. NASCOM Foundation is the NASCOM's social arm and work with the industry for social good using technology. We are looking forward to learning a lot of things from you, sir. And the participants here will also be getting to hear some insights from you. And this knowledge and insights, we hope that the participants will be able to come up with better solutions. So, without any delay, let's hear from Santosh, sir.
Thank you, Yash, and thank you for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. So, as Yash said, I'm the Vice President of NASCOM Foundation, and I've been heading a lot of their programs. And in particular, one of them is the NASCOM Social Innovation Forum, which I've been leading to help young entrepreneurs and startups scale and grow. So that has been a part of my journey in the social development sector. So before I start, I would like to hear a few voices on, what do you want to learn out of this session? Well, because, you're being used to lecture and I'm going to do the same, but I would like a few responses, if you can come and speak and say, what is it that you're wanting to learn from this session so that as I go forward, I can touch on that. Anybody can speak if you're able to.
Yes, sir, we are getting replies in the chat.
Mm-hmm. 1 second. Okay. Motivation for students, innovation. Okay. How to sustain. Okay, I have a few questions that have come in. I will try and see if my presentation is going to address that. If not, we'll see how we can do that. Okay. So going forward, we'll start with a classical presentation where we talk about social enterprise as a definition, right? So the definition of a social enterprise, as seen on the screen, is that of a what we call as organization that has both commercial and financial strategies that are applied to the well-being of a society. So that is what the the basic definition of a social enterprise is. And if you completely simplify the whole concept, the definition that clearly comes is that organizations that are wanting to address basic unmet need. What basic unmet need could be anything, roti kapda makan, or solve a social or environmental problem, pollution or caste or say child marriage, and or health through a market driven approach. So market driven in the sense is where we are looking at how do we make also make sure that these are sustainable and have long term outcomes for the society. So four things that are very important when we are looking at the basic definition is social or environmental problem, unmet unmet need, and it's a market driven approach. So these are the three things that you need to remember when you're setting up a social enterprise. So this is how a classical definition for a social enterprise has been for some time now. So we've also heard the term startup, right? And everybody is saying that, am I a startup or am I a social enterprise organization? So to again define what this whole concept is, a startup should really be seen as a temporary organization.
I'm
And this,
sorry, sir, to interrupt.
uh,
Are you presenting your screen right now?
okay, there is no screen presence. Is it seen now?
No, sir, we can't see your screen.
Okay, so let me do one thing. Can I just send it to you? Because I don't
Yes,
think this
sir.
is
Yes, sir,
working
you
for me.
can send it to me. Sure.
Okay,
Or you can
so
share me in the
I will
chat
share my screen
directly.
again. No problem.
Okay,
I
okay,
will
no.
just share it. Share. One second. I There's some problem with technology today. So but the screen showing is sharing.
But I can't see, like, your screen is not visible.
Okay, just give me 1 second. I will just send it out to you.
Yes, sir, sure.
Or is it seen now?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay. So I'm on slide 3. Is it seen now? Still, just let me know if it does not show up. Can you still see the screen?
Yes, sir, it's working.
Perfect. So as I was saying, a startup is a temporary organization, and this organization's whole role is to bring a service or a product to market. And the important words that we are looking at is by searching for a profitable and scalable business model, right? So it's two words that are very important. Is that, you should always consider a startup as a temporary organization. While we say, it's an organization that brings in billions of dollars, but it's not a final setup. So the startup will eventually evolve into a company or a social organization. So it is not going to remain a startup forever. But the most important piece that we have to remember is the searching for a profitable and scalable business model. So that is very important. Otherwise, there is no point of starting a startup just to say that I also have a startup and I know how to do a startup. So that is very important. So the question is why? Why do we need so many startups and social enterprise models in the country? So I hope all of you are familiar with this certain picture. This is about the UN sustainability goals. And there are 17 different sustainable development goals that have been defined by UN as things that we need to achieve in the near future. So for this to happen, the government and non-profit organizations alone are not able to meet the requirement. So hence we have not-for-profit organizations and some of them turning social enterprise to be able to solve these problems. So some of the areas where a lot of nonprofits are looking at is hunger, health, well-being, poverty. Uh, so there are scope within this sustainable development goal to have other things like life below water using IoT, AI, ML, life on land. Looking at how do you improve the quality of life on land. You know, Again, saying how do you curb pollution using new technologies. So there are multi-sectoral benefits that is derived when young social startups come into the picture. And if you look at the whole tech as a piece, and according to the World Economic Forum, 90% of all the IoT and other technological innovations have a direct bearing on how the social sustainable development goals are going to be achieved. So, for example, there are entrepreneurs that are using sensors buried in the ground to look at how the earth is moving during rains, so that they are able to better predict landslides. So these are sensors that last for months together and are able to kind of bring to the fruition the use of both technology and how this whole thing works. So this is one of those examples. So moving on, can you still see my screen, Yash?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yeah. So the other solutions, these are organizations that at the bottom of its activity, it has the social or environmental outcomes, but in providing a service that is affordable and that has a lasting effect, it becomes a revenue generation engine also for them. Again, the second person is a social entrepreneur, and he is an individual who has ideas to solve the different issues that are plaguing the society, and will bring those ideas in. And the third piece is social financing and impact investing, where there are organizations that are looking at investing larger funds and also looking at what we call as social return on investment. So there is both the returns on financial gains and benefits from the work they're doing, and also to the communities. And if you look at the bottom, these are how the host organizations are being on a continuum. Let's say for a lookout, we can call them as revenue generating, not-for-profit or for-profit social businesses. And the third piece where we're looking at, they call it a B Corp, a business corp, which is looking at traditional, businesses looking at CSR as a part of the answer. And so a social entrepreneur will fall in both a charitable not-for-profit organization or a for-profit social business. So this is the cusp where the social entrepreneur falls in. So we've been working with a lot of innovation and innovative projects. So these are two examples that I would like to bring in. So from an engineering perspective, if you're looking at how do I pick up healthcare and disability as two different social issues and bring them together to find out a viable solution. So Soham innovation is one of the social innovations that we support. And what was the problem? The problem was that the newborn children, some children are born with a hearing impairment. Unfortunately, the low-cost resource settings, the PHCs, do not have the ability to screen a newborn baby for hearing impairment. What does that lead to is a long-term issues with disability and impairment. So Soham Innovative Labs came up with the idea of being able to create a very small product that these guys can use, and they are able to use that to screen children. So it does one of two things. One is create a social well-being. It creates a marked improvement in mitigating or managing disability, and it is also an affordable service that is essential and available in low-cost resource settings. Again, Shelter Associates from Pune, they are using GIS and mapping to ensure that they are able to collect data, analyze individual household surveys, and use these markers to deliver services to communities. So this is one of their innovative projects. So in India, there are other ones like FreeSet Global, that is looking at fair business offerings. So for women who are in the, commercial sex work. They want to come out of it. How do I create enterprise for them? Then Zaya Learning Labs, again, a cloud-based software, peer-to-peer learning software for low and middle income schools, then iVillage, and so on and so forth. So these are some examples of social enterprises that are in the country. Okay. So how do you start becoming a social entrepreneur? The whole thing is an idea. So the idea cycle starts like this. So you have a idea that you want to solve a problem, right? So you build on a problem, you build on a solution, then you put the solution to work, you measure, and you learn, and this whole cycle gets repeated again. So the idea is looking from build, measure, and learn. So these are the three major concepts that you'll have to remember: is build for the problem, look at viable solutions, then deploy the solution, measure, learn, and put it back into the building and learning cycle. So from that, we have three distinct areas. So what happens once you learn, build, and learn? Then you create what we call as a prototype. So the first step in this whole product development for social enterprise is a prototype development. The prototype development will talk about the value proposition of your product. What will the product do? And then it is backed by market research that you've done on the problem and the outcomes. Then you create a mock-up of the product. Then you have the alpha customer. Alpha customer is the internal customer, is a set of people that you already know and are already helping supporting you. So they will help you validate the product. And then it goes to beta, which is your retail customer. And what happens then is then that customer gives you feedbacks. You have a lot of internal iterations after which you finish the products. So at the prototype stage, you're not selling anything. This is all giving. You are trying this out, you're testing this out, and you are trying to see how you can refine the product. From the prototype stage, you go to the second stage called as a minimum viable product. A minimum viable product is when you have established your value proposition. Is that today I have found a solution that can help with stopping water contamination. So now for me, the stakeholder is the municipal corporation or the public work department that is looking to solve the problem of contamination of lakes. So our product is, say, let's say an IoT solution or a chemical solution that will help the product. And this is a big problem that we are solving. And we've established that putting 2 drops of whatever solution I find in 1 ml of 10 ml of water is cleaning the water that is fit to drink. So our core beneficiaries is satisfied, and our solution is very unique. There might be 1,000 solutions in the market, but ours only needs 2 drops. So that is how the value proposition has been established in your product. The second thing that you need when you have a minimum viable product is also operational. So once you've created the solution that you have tested, beta customers have tested, you've included feedback, the next piece that you'll have to remember is to say, how do you make, sell, distribute, or service the product? So that plan also has to be drawn. While it does not have to be 100% solved for, but at least the operational model of, let's say tomorrow I sell 100 gallons of this solution, hypothetically, which is the lake cleaning solution, to the greater municipal corporation of Noida, and they use it in the lake. How do we sell it? What is the unit cost? And how do you say if the solution is over, how do I give them the second supply? So it brings us to the distribute and service the product, and also financial product. How do you make, what is the economics of money that you make? Do I make 10 rupees of a liter, or do I sell in bulk and make money of it? And the last piece in the minimum viable product is defendability. Once you've created the product, is the product staying ahead of competition? Let's say product A that you built needs 2 drops for 10 ml of water, and along comes a competition that says, you only need 1 drop for 10 ml of water. Now, our product let's say, are we going to invest and research and say, how do I create a product that only needs 2 drops for 50 ml of water? So, so that is the other constant thing that you'll have to remember. And the last piece of this is break even. So, from a prototype, you've created a product that has got some proposition and you have some unit economics of it. And the final piece is, how do you ensure that you price it properly so that you're able to maintain and sustain the capital cash? So this is in theory or how you move from a product to a prototype to a product to a break even. So when you go to break even, there are other unit economics, which is another long chapter. That's something you'll have to refer. How do you measure the unit of economics, right from production cost to cost of sales to cost of acquiring a customer? So that's a formula that is available there. So one of the things that you have to always remember, that the product is not the hero. You must always understand that the customer does not buy the product, or the beneficiary does not take the product from you because it's the best in the world as bells and whistles. The reason why they take the product from you is because they find maximum value from it, right? It solves their basic problems. So that is how your product is not the hero. The problem it solves becomes the biggest asset for selling. Now, we've heard, what is a social enterprise? Why do we need social enterprise? How do you start the whole cycle from build, learn, build, then apply, learn, and come back, and then from creating prototypes, a minimum viable product, to breaking even. So the question is, where do I start? There are a couple of things that you just need to start from. Have a problem, find a problem that you're very, very passionate to solve. So let me bring a very small example, and an anecdotal example. So a girl in Himachal, she lives on top of a hill with her parents, and one of her problems is that whenever she dries clothes and she, whenever it starts to rain, she needs to run from her house to get the clothes picked up so that they don't get wet. Now, but she realized that by the time she reaches the clothes, it's all become wet and soggy, and she has to do the whole drying process again and again. Now, that was the problem that she had, and she was very passionate because she was getting into so much of stress on this. So what she created was a very small mechanism, that you currently see in cars, that she created a sensor that whenever the raindrop starts to hit the sensor, the clothesline starts pulling back into her house. So she devised a small motor with a sensor that can come into her house. Now that is the passion. Again, the passion was to say, how do I reduce effort of my parents or myself to do this? I'm just bringing this as an anecdotal example. Now, that is the problem she wanted to solve. So in that way, there are thousands of problems that we see every day, be it homeless tolerance. Now, these are all problems that we see, and you need to know what problem speaks to you. Is it my fellow human being suffering? Is the animal suffering? Or is it everything put together? Now, that is the problem that will drive you and will drive to create your enterprise. The next thing that we always say is, before even you try and devise a product, is then talk to a couple of your friends, talk to a couple of people and say, do I have shared values? Do I have ideas that people will resonate with? Do I have enough company that people will come and talk to me? Then you start the conversations, then you get ideas, then you design your MVP and say, how viable that process of what is your value proposition in it. And let's say, your social business model, your business plan is developed. You need to tell what you're going to do, how you're going to measure, and how you're going to manage your finance. So these three things is the sure shot start of a social enterprise. The most important thing that everybody in this world would have given you Gyan is fail and have fun failing. So if you don't have fun failing, then you won't learn, nor will you be able to move on with your uh, ideas. So you have to keep failing, learning. You don't have to fail sometimes. You have to fail sometimes. Exploit that learning cycle. Then again, always, even if you're failing, don't try and do it alone. Talk to your friends, let them know what you've done, let them be able to help you with whatever problems they have and ideas they have. And the other big piece that you have to remember, that you're not alone in this world trying to solve problems. There are network of experts and other entrepreneurs and innovators there who will help you with the startups and help you with the product. And the last piece is reflect, always being able to take a step back and see what your product is and how you are learning from it. So that's the reflect piece. So moving on, after you've started the whole this thing, then this whole question of scale comes. So this is a good to have kind of requirement, but there are three things in scale: scaling deep, scaling up, or scaling out. So depending on how good your product or how you've been able to envision that your product will sell, these are some of the questions that you'll have to answer. Is that, do I have 1,000 people who are benefiting, and my community or my districts has 100,000 people who can benefit from this, which means that I will stay localized till the time I am able to service the entire population, or I am going to say, am I going to organically grow? Can I find 10 like-minded entrepreneurs who can take my service to different communities? So that is scaling up. Scaling out is, again, creating models on franchising models that can create larger scale and impact. So that is where the other piece comes in. So this whole question is, now that we've seen what a social enterprise is, how do you start? I have an idea, what is innovation? So how do I scale? But the question is, how do I raise funds? So there are a couple of uh, ways that you can raise funds. So business plans and competitions, these are the sure short ones that mostly are for student startups. And there are a lot of these competitions that are run, like IIM Calcutta's Tata Social Enterprise Challenge, IDEA Challenge. Then there is the Sankalp Forum that runs challenge. Then Artha Ventures. There are multiple business plans and competition and challenges. These are going to help you raise funds. So how much funds can you raise from a business plan competition? So it can go from 10,000 rupees to a few crores, depending on the size of the competition that you're entering to. So the second stage is, once you say you have basic bootstrap funding that you've put from family and friends, and you want to scale, what is the stage? So, or this stage, you can go for seed and stage funding. Again, these are all organizations who have set up. I'll have given some of these links the next page. So these are organizations like Upaya, Unlimited India, and they have created portfolios. And say, let's say, for example, Upaya Social Ventures looks at non-farm products. So for example, if you have a product that can increase livelihoods of farmers who don't own their own land and want to get livelihood out of it, so there are some organizations that do the seed stage funding for that. uh, grants and donations are typically for organizations who are not for profit organizations, registered charitable organization, section 8 companies, societies. Grants and donations again start from a few thousands to multiple crores. And these are all so one of the important pieces, how your organization is registered. If you're registered as a social entity having 12A tax exemption, ATG tax rebate, then you are eligible for CSR and institutional funding from NGOs and other international organizations. Then there is crowdfunding. All of us know how you can start a crowdfunding activity to raise resources. Again, this is more dealing with the emotional side of people, and say, how do I get people to contribute for a cause. Again, this will go from anywhere from a few thousand to a few lakhs. Social enterprise incubators are structured opportunities where you are able to raise money from, both in terms of being able to get a space, get a, stipend, and also be able to access services in terms of legal, finance, marketing, etc. So incubators would be a Deshpande Foundation, or an Unlimited, or a Dasra, who would all become social enterprise incubators. Then social venture capital firms. These are large organizations who give you multi-year funding and large funding for ensuring impact and outcomes from your social venture. So the organizations like Omidyar Network and other this thing. So to reach a stage where you are in the social venture capital fund, then you'll have to have a solid business plan, a lot of repeat and paying customers, and also you have to have your social return on investment, saying that in 5 years time I should be able to bring about outcomes in both incomes of individuals increased. Also, I will also ensure that my working capital is also break even. So that is the idea. Debt financing is your classical debt financing, where many banks and institutional grassroots institution gives you debt for running the business, and then you're able to pay it back. For the latest example would be the National Skill Development Corporation of India giving out funding for social enterprises to be able to train young people and also give back, whenever it's possible. So some funding links I've put: unlimitedindia.org, Will Grow, Action for India, Deshpande Foundation, Dasra, Upaya, CIIE, Khosla Labs, Social Alpha, CSI The Nudge. So, these are all organizations that help you raise funds and have running competitions across the year, right? So, last but not least, this is something by Bill Trayton of Ashoka. We're saying, we've already all heard the analogy that teach a man to fish, and they will be able to fish for their lives or feed for their lives. The idea of a social entrepreneur right now is not to teach a person to fish or give a fish, and they want to revolutionize the way that you are able to fish. The whole industry is. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm going to take some questions from team. And I am a little sorry this has been one way, and right now I can see if there are questions that I want to pick up the last 10 minutes or so. So Yash, anything else that you want me to cover? I can always go and cover that.
Yes, sir. I think you have explained a lot, and it would be better if we ask participants if they have any questions, if they want to ask you.
Yeah,
Yes,
Sanjul, I have.
Sanjay.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, sir, as you said that product is not the hero. So, sir, do you by saying it, do you mean that like branding is not important in social enterprise?
No. So what we are saying is baby steps first, right? So one of the things that you'll have to do is, instead of talking about the brand or that driving value, you should always talk about what the value proposition is, right? In saying that the problem that I solve by the product is more important than the product itself. So I might have the best of the product that looks and feels like premium, but it might be a good to have, but not a must have. So again, that I'm saying, when I'm saying product is not the hero, not the brand is not the hero. The product that is trying to solve the issue is the hero.
Oh, sir, it means like that impact should be driving force.
Yes. So, the biggest value proposition of any organization to be scalable is the ability of it to understand is that how it solves a problem, right? If it is a social problem, is an environment problem, or an economic problem. Unless I can see that it helps with the problem, then nobody is going to fund it, because then it might be very localized. So it might say it can take solve 100 people's problems. It might not solve 1,000 people's problem. So all these combinations come into play whenever you're doing this. So one of the things that I thought of touching around is, how do you register the organization, right? So there are multiple ways. So if you are registering yourself as a not-for-profit organization, and one is looking at CSR and NGO CSR funding per se, because all the companies spend 2%, your wait is going to be longer, because the CSR law says that you should have at least been in operation for the last 3 years to be able to access funds from CSR. So at the time of inception itself, you have to be very careful on how you want to register the organization. So if you are a Section 8 company, which is a not-for-profit company, there are certain advantages. If you're a society, there are certain advantages. If you're a trust, there are certain advantages. You could very well being a for-profit company that is in the social space. So depending on where you want to go with the and what the product you're designing, uh, let's say it might be a product. For example, we had an entrepreneur who was selling air filtration systems, or there are these big air filters that have been set up on traffic police kiosks. The idea was that the product will help clean air within 60 feet radius of where the traffic cop was standing, which means it's helped improve the health, or the reduce the ill effects of pollution on the traffic policeman who's standing at that kiosk, right? So that was the innovation, the whole air filter. But what we was presently surprised is when the entrepreneur said, "Sir, that is the idea, that is the problem that I'm going to solve. But for me, the outcome is being able to provide these filters for free. So how do I create this?" So what the person did was, they said, I'm going to sell the space on my air filter, and I am going to give this as a premium advertising space. So what they did was, they installed the air filters in airports, and they created a space that this air filter, this particular spot, can be used for marketing. So they created more revenue in marketing than installing air filters. So what that led to was them being able to install more and more air filters in communities that needed it, without actually looking for funding. So they were able to bring out their marketing capacity into creating social impact elsewhere. So this is the kind of entrepreneurship mindset that we're talking about. So there is another hand I saw. I'm sorry.
There is, I think, a technical glitch. The person has left the meeting.
No worries, no worries.
Sir, thanks a lot for your this session. I have a question. How a NGO owner can make profit out of NGO?
See, you technically, so NGO, in NGO language, it's never called a profit, right? It's always called a surplus. So if you're a social enterprise who is working within an NGO, the idea is to ensure that the surplus that you create from goods and services are going back to the people. So if I'm able to say serve 100 people and make money, and I can additionally serve 50 people from the money I make on a different vertical, the money should essentially be invested into that particular vertical. So in NGO, there is a concept of surplus for other programs and never a concept of profit. So if you're looking at making profits as an NGO, it kind of defeats the purpose. But if you're a social not-for-profit company, you're looking at making profits to plow back into the system, then it makes sense.
Thanks.
Yeah, Yashvi. Right. So I will take, I know that IIT BHU has a makerspace that has been supported as a Thinkubator. Are you aware of the Thinkubators?
Yes, sir.
Yes. So I think one of the examples from the Thinkubator in another college is a worker wearable that helps with monitoring the health of workers in mines. Say, for example, if I'm working in a mine environment under the ground, it's very important that my vitals are stable for me to be safe, right? So one of the student communities came up with a project there. They were able to try and see how do I monitor the health of a worker deep inside a mine so that I'm able to say give timely feedback or restore to that particular person. So that was the project that they thought of how do I use um, feedback from sensors that are on the body to create products. Now, this is a science project, right? So this is how they have been able to kind of test it and see, does it work actually? Does it measure fatigue? Can I develop a prototype? So that went from an idea to a prototype. Now it's an actual product that they're testing it out. So there are two, three things here. One is there is a felt need for worker safety for monitoring the health of a worker, which which might be expressed need by companies, but not have the idea to do it. So now there's an express need that also has come to fruition through science, through sensors, that there is a possibility to do it. Now the second question came is that now do you have to have Wi-Fi connection to ensure that the device is transmitting? Now you can have a different set of technologies, right? You can have a Bluetooth mesh. You could have multi-staging server. So there are multiple options where you can solve that problem. So one problem at a time. When you solve it, then you end up with a solution that is largely helping people. So yes, the answer is yes, definitely science projects. There are also projects that have fall detect for elderly people. These are all basic Arduino modules that have been put together on a breadboard to see if it can work. And there are tons and tons of such innovations that have been turned into viable products. Does that answer your question?
Hello, good evening, sir.
Good evening, ma'am.
Sir, I'm Yashvi Bansal.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
I I want to ask this: how do we, as a startup, how do we measure our impact, the impact of our product on the people?
Okay, so there are a couple of things. So actually, it depends on what stage you are in, right? So if you're a basic organization who just started work, uh, y- there are a couple of things that are very important. What is your theory of change, or what is that you're envisaging your product will do. So if you see the earlier cycle, if you look at build and then you learn, right? Then you feed back into the system. That is when you get feedback from the beneficiary if the product has that they have been using is actually giving them any result. So for example, if for example, I'll take a hypothetical example, right? So you want one of the uh, reasons why there is uh, a dropout is because that children are not able to come to school because they don't have a proper noon meal and they have to go and work for that. So now the school is providing a noon meal. So your social enterprise is looking at how do you maximize the input nutrition of that particular noon meal. Now you say that, okay, now for 10 rupees, I've created a nutrition mix of vitamins that I can put in the food while it is cooking, and then I can see that the children who are eating become better nourished. So you start with a baseline. So if you want to actually see impact, then you have to say, the problem is that children are not having enough nutrition, even if they come to have a noon meal, and they have a deficient vitamin D. Now, after a sustained, 6 months, then you do a measurement of a control and say that from point A to point B, the vitamin has increased in the body. So hypothetically, now that should be a basic measure of impact that can be extrapolated on the larger communities. Now, that is how, so the clear feedback cycle and understanding what your product will help you understand the impact of the product as well. So that is how you measure. So it depends on the particular product and the change that you want to make. So one of the things that we say is that it's very, it's the smart one, right? It's specific, measurable, time bound. So if you want to reference, there's something called as a Bloom's taxonomy that is used for identifying the level of impact, right from just saying that he will be able to understand, he will be able to assimilate, he will able to reinvent or recreate. So these are the levels of impact that are articulated. So it's called Bloom's taxonomy. So it's helpful that way to understand the level of impact and the level of outcomes that you want.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
So are there any more questions? Okay, I think we've come closer to the end of these conversation. I hope this was useful. So one of the things that you always remember is that focus on the problem. The second thing is that build, learn, rebuild. Third thing is that always have a very solid value proposition of what your product can do. Then the next piece is how do you create a unit economic? Fourth piece is how do you define sustainability for your own product? 5 is find like-minded people. 6 is test it with people. 7 is go live, keep learning, and then you should be able to have a successful start of the startup. Uh, yeah. Thank you, Yash.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for such an amazing workshop. So we are very grateful to that you took out your time to prepare such an interesting session for the participants. Everyone here must have enjoyed it a lot. The learnings from this session are invaluable, and I think participants have also got sufficient insights about social entrepreneurship. We are also looking forward to seeing lots of new thoughts and new thought-provoking ideas from the participants. We are really engrossed in the session, but due to time constraints, we need to end it here.
No. That's not a problem because this is a vast topic and one can keep speaking about it. I will just close by saying, just be very, very passionate about the problem that you want to solve. If you are able to solve one problem and are able to find a successful way of solving it, that is all you need. You don't have to have rocket science to do it. Very simple problems have simple solutions. Yeah. Thank you so much, Yash, for the opportunity.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So on this note, let's end this session. And thank you all for joining and participating with all zeal and enthusiasm. We are obliged to have you, sir. Thank you, team, for organizing and managing this session.
Thank you.